You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Harry's Wife. Hell for Harry, Part 3. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I'm taking you through the Alan and Catherine Casanoff case, where a narcissist has accused the victim of parental alienation and has continued to assert control through various manipulations following the demise of their relationship in relation to the upbringing of the couple's children. I'm also doing this to enable you to understand the hell that Harry is involved in and that he faces, as Harry's wife is likely, as a narcissist also, to treat him in a similar manner. Thus, by following the timeline and events of the Casanoff case, it enables me to provide you with a platform for understanding what it is that Harry may well currently be experiencing, the reasons why, and what awaits him. By January the 25th, 2022, Alan Casanoff had the family court throw Catherine Casanoff out of the house and apartment a country mile away from the children at all times because experts said that she had alienated the children from him. Where people don't realise that they're dealing with narcissists, it is not uncommon for that narcissist to be able to manipulate those around them. However, I'm pleased to state that where people have engaged my services to advise them with regard to what they ought to do, where they're facing a custody battle, the outcome is far different. And if you find yourself in that situation, read the testimonials of those who've been helped by me. You will not have a similar outcome to that experienced by Catherine Casanoff or Harry. The 1 mile stay away had expired at this point in January 2022, but Catherine was spotted in the vicinity. Notwithstanding the fact that the 1 mile stay away had expired, Alan Casanoff went to Larchmont Police, alleging Catherine violated the TOP. He did so because her appearance threatened his sense of control, and therefore, notwithstanding the expiration of the stay-away exclusion zone, he still sought to use that against her. He acted in the moment. His narcissism told him that it was appropriate to do so in the same way that Harry's wife's narcissism will tell her it's appropriate to behave in a similar way towards Harry. On the following day, January the 26th, 2022, Catherine was in front of her daughter's school, getting into her car when 4 police officers pinned her behind her car door. Police frisked, cuffed, arrested her, and took her to a holding cell and led her before a judge where she was arraigned. Someone informed her employer. There's a good chance, of course, that it would have been Alan Casanoff. She was special counsel to the New York governor's office of her arrest. A few days later, she was fired as special counsel, a job she held for 7 years. Catherine went to court to prove no TOP prevented her from being outside her child's school. The court dismissed her charges. No ACD, no plea, on March the 16th, 2022. Accordingly, the narcissist, in ordering to assert control, falsely told the police that she had violated a TOP. The police, rather than actually investigate whether that was the case properly, just turn up and arrest her in front of her daughter's school and then put her in front of a judge. This occurrence is then relayed to her employers, who fire her. This is likely all the conduct of Alan Casanoff, which is designed not only to assert control over Catherine Casanoff, but to punish her, because in his mind, she joins the legions of untrustworthy, unreliable individuals. Harry's wife is likely to behave in a similar manner. Harry will be painted black. He will be public enemy number 1. And he will have various nowhere near the truths used against him. We know from the many videos that I've made that Harry's wife regularly revises history and deals in untruths. This will only escalate for Harry. In autumn-fall 2022, Catherine Casanoff went after the court-appointed attorney for the children, Carol Most, alleging unethical conduct. Most was removed from the case for misconduct and denied $113,000 of a $270,000 invoice for services on behalf of the children. You will notice also that with Catherine Kassenhov, that repeatedly she has had to take steps where she has actually succeeded. She has had part of the attorney's fees discounted. She has had that court-appointed attorney removed. She had one of the evaluators removed as a consequence of inappropriate conduct, Dr. Abrams. She managed to demonstrate that her arrest was inappropriate and the charges were dismissed. She'll have done this by going to the evidence, and notwithstanding, of course, the repeated attempts of the narcissist to assert control over her and the way that it was grinding her down, she was still able to achieve successes amongst all of the various devaluing behaviours that were being meted out against her. And this is something that you ought to keep in mind, as I explain with regard to Give the Narcissist Enough Rope in that groundbreaking video of the same name. Harry, if he is able to fight through his emotional thinking and receive intervening assistance, will be able to make ground, because there will be evidence that he can unearth with regard to his wife's poor behaviour. Once he's able to start doing that, and it may well be the case that his family comes to his rescue with regard to evidence, for instance, from the bullying inquiry, and other evidence comes forth about the way that she has behaved, possibly with relation to the children, he may be able to gain some momentum. But the point is this: when you're dealing with a narcissist, particularly lesser and mid-range, those narcissists will not only create evidence which is problematic for them because of their need to assert control in the moment and act in the moment, and you need to be around to catch that evidence. But secondly, when that evidence is put to them, they will then continue to tell more and more lies, because rather than see it for what it is, namely evidence of their wrongdoing, their distortion field simply tells them that it's made up, that it's lies, that this is an untrustworthy individual engaging in further lying about them, and they will just make it worse for themselves. On the 18th of March 2023, Catherine Kassenhov went to see her 9-year-old daughter skate at her lesson. There was no valid TOP to prevent her. Alan came off the ice to confront her. Her presence threatened his sense of control, thus he confronted her. Catherine told him to get away from me. Alan caused a 911 call. 4 police officers came to the rink. Alan said there was a TOP against her, which was untrue. Police did not arrest her at this time. Notice again, though, his attempts to assert control over her by utilisation of nowhere near the truth and the presence of a non-existent TOP. Harry can expect similar behaviour from Harry's wife. We've seen the number of instances where the sheriff and the police have been called out to the Monty Shitshow mansion as a consequence of the paranoia of Harry's wife. She will also similarly look to utilise the authorities against Harry, accusing him of various things. And Harry needs to ensure that he's armed with evidence to use against that, because Harry's wife will utilise the authorities against him for the purposes of asserting control. Come May 2023, custody evaluator McKay made her final custody report, and the court adopted it. The judge issued a 1-line order that Catherine could not have contact with her children. This was it appears. There had been over 3,000 court filings with 80 motions in her case. There were 3 attorneys for the children and new therapists. I have liquidated retirement and other savings, Catherine wrote, adding that Alan spent millions to get custody. The money being made at the expense of her family, she said, is so abhorrent that there will be nothing left at the end. That, of course, is demonstrative of the way that the narcissist behaves, that there is such a focus on the repeated need to assert control by hiring lawyers, by hiring therapists, by issuing motion after motion after motion, running up the bill, running up the lawyer's clock, all about pursuing that control and that fuel, that the unaware narcissist is unable to see that they are actually causing a problem for themselves by frittering away the money. Harry's wife will behave in a similar way. Although money is hugely important to her as a residual benefit, should she get into a fight about custody with Harry, she will rack up substantial bills. It might be the case that, of course, that her wealth is able to absorb and deal with such level of expenditure. But it could be problematic for her alongside all the other high levels of expenditure that she incurs, but be under no doubt that the level of legal expenditure will be significant, because rather than taking a pragmatic view, her narcissism will cause her, with each instance of Harry doing something which threatens her control, to fight back with some kind of motion, even if it is unfounded. Alan Kasanoff has behaved in a similar way. The report continues by explaining that Catherine Kasanoff stated, "My children have been diagnosed with various serious mental health conditions due to this trauma. They've been told to hate me, to call me Catherine instead of Mum, to give Mother's Day cards to Alan's girlfriend, to call me a liar and a gaslighter." Those are just some of the manipulations that the children are subjected to. Alan Kasanoff has no emotional empathy for them. They are simply pawns for him to use in his ongoing crusade against their mother. Harry can expect the same of his children. They will be used in a similar way. Harry's wife is likely to get a replacement to Harry, and in such circumstances will involve them in the lives of the children at a very early juncture. That will, of course, break Harry's heart. She will encourage them to look favourably upon this person, who's deemed a replacement for their own father. Catherine Kasanoff continued, "The abuser who claimed he was alienated has repeatedly been empowered by the courts of New York State to alienate me, the protective parent, from my own children. I am a 2-time breast cancer survivor with a new diagnosis, which makes continuing this fight impossible. I continue to be placed on supervision, with no more than a few hours a week with my girls. No overnights, no taking my children to school, no bathing them, no hosting sleepovers or birthday parties, no getting to know their friends, no vacations, no living with them. The courts have thoroughly excised me from their lives. My oldest continues to try to see me secretly, calls me incessantly, and is screamed at by Alan and Kraft for doing so. She and her younger terrified sisters know nothing will change in this courthouse for them, so they have been effectively silenced. Don't let my death be in vain, and please ensure my children know the truth about me and what happened to them here in the great state of New York. Perhaps if I had not been re-diagnosed with cancer, I could have lasted longer in this fight, but I do not have the strength to go forward. More importantly, I do not want to traumatize my children anymore in this court system where Alan and his attorney Gus Demopoulos have used them to continue their abuse. Please direct any information or inquiries to my dear friend Wayne Baker at federallitigator@gmail.com. Thus, that was the final statement that was issued by Catherine Kasanoff. Harry may well find himself in a similar situation. There are those that have expressed their concerns about his mental state. Alienated from support networks, mind-addled and frazzled by his drug intake, and, of course, the rampant emotional thinking and being subjected to the manipulations. When he's disengaged from, and he will be, and the fight begins over the children, it may well place him in a similarly precarious position. This 3-part series has utilised the case of the Kasanoffs not only for you to understand what has gone on in that instance and the manipulations and the dynamic, but also to draw parallels with what could possibly be happening to Harry and what might also happen to him following the demise of that relationship as he is plunged into his own personal hell. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.